welcome to UC Today. My name is Kieran Devlin. In today's session, we will explore how enterprises can transition from firefighting to continuous improvement, reclaiming control of their UC environments and laying the groundwork for AI-driven service management. I am delighted to be joined by Tim Jalland, Solution Manager at VOSS. Tim, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Kieran.
Before we explore exactly how businesses can make that transition, Tim, can you please tell us a little about yourself and your VOSS journey?
Sure. Yeah, my name is Tim Jalland. I'm a solution manager at VOSS, responsible for the Microsoft side of our portfolio and business. And for people that don't know VOSS, as a short intro, we're a software company that's been working in the digital workplace UC and telephony industry for over 20 years. We specialize in lifecycle management solutions that cover onboarding, day-to-day management, monitoring and analytics of Microsoft and multi-vendor UC solutions. My role at VOSS is working with partners and customers globally, designing and deploying solutions to meet their requirements. And my background's broadly in UC, telephony and networking. And I'm hoping to bring some of the examples from that work into the session today, Kieran.
What an elegant segue. And let's kick things off, Tim. Many businesses have lost visibility and control over their UC environments as these has become so elaborate, so complex over the last 5-10 years. We're talking from capacity planning to budget oversight. What do you see as the main drivers behind this loss of control, and why has it become such a pressing challenge today?
Well, I would say the last few years in the industry have been really interesting. So essentially, what we see going on is organizations are moving from offices and data centers that come with a set of tools and responsibility for running them to a more hands-off approach on the cloud. And you've also got more people working from home and other outside the office locations and not so much in the office itself. And then there's a multi-channel aspect. There's a mix of voice, video, chat, email, sharing, meetings in terms of how people collaborate. So if you put all that together, increasingly we see organizations, they're taking IT as a true service or a utility, and they're consuming that from the cloud. And there's some benefits, obviously, for that. But with that move, you're really left with very little true insight and control. It is what it is. So the result is where you end up. Businesses are under a lot of pressure at the moment to maximize returns, and without any real visibility into usage, costs, and performance, what we're seeing is a desire to regain a level of control that allows them not only to contain spending and improve service delivery, but also lay the foundation and the groundwork for AI-driven use cases as they start to bring those into the organization. So that's what this is all about when we talk about taking back control.
And naturally, there can be quite severe fallout when that control slips, from unused licenses, SLA breaches, to all the demands of reactive firefighting. From your experience with VOSS customers, what are some of the most common and costly consequences that these businesses are facing?
So I can share a few examples. We work regularly with organizations. These are in the slightly larger organizations with more complexity and scale. So organizations we work with. So the obvious one is, and we get a lot of asks around this, is generally poor user experience being the most common one. And now we've all been on Teams calls and the calls drop out, or can you hear me? Conversations are in the call. It's sort of got acceptable now. But it gets more dramatic when you're working with more high-profile meetings. So we're talking about town halls, for example, executive meetings or board meetings. That's really problematic for organizations when they start having issues inside that. There's some of the impactful ones, but in terms of issues that creep into organizations and where we work with organizations, it's around service performance issues and things like that, and improvements where there's a lot of finger pointing as to where the issues really are. It's topics like cost overruns from licensing or licensing sprawl. And then it's just generally a lack of service improvement and adoption through a lack of analytics to keep the service moving forward. So again, without a crystal clear view across their UC environment, organizations find themselves unable to meet best practices, keeping a lid on budgets or consistently meeting SLA commitments. That's really the consequences we see in organizations. And perhaps just to finish, Kieran, on this topic, more strategically, they really risk missing out on the wave of AI-driven productivity tools for things like Microsoft Copilot.
And I've worked with you guys for a while now, and we've discussed the journey from proactive insight to automation. You've got all this data, all these analytics. How do you leverage them to get to all the wheels spilling in tandem? Could you walk us through what that progression looks like in practice and how it helps enterprises move from the firefighting we've outlined to the continuous improvement?
So we see this as a phased approach. It's not a big bang, and we tend to adopt a strategy alongside the organisation's IT strategy or their cloud strategy. And we take it in phases, so we deploy this not too disruptively within an organisation. But the first step really is that insight, getting better insight and analytics into the service configuration, the service performance as it stands right now as a baseline. So that's in topics like usage, costs, and user experience. So what we're talking about there is a single place really to capture and correlate data from across the service proactively in a non-fragmented way. And it's on these topics: usage, performance, user experience. And then we bring that together into a set of flexible dashboards and bring that in information that you can review and take action on all in one place. And that's really the starting point where we take organisations so they've got a clear view of the current baseline of the service. And then from there, we can start proactively picking up issues and targeted improvements. It's really the basis this is for driving planning and evolving and improving the service alongside their business requirements. And it starts to move them from firefighting and more into proactive and forward-looking improvements. That's really the second phase we're working with organisations around. And then finally, the last phase we start to move into is where we're starting to deploy automation. And we're really doing that to build sustainable gains within the organisation and within the service. And we're really trying to prepare the groundwork there for AI. So you may know organisations rely a lot on vendor portals, technical scripts, or more likely a reliance on a service provider or partner to deliver service management. And our philosophy is bringing back a level of control into the organisation, just puts them in a better place to manage service requests and changes in a more intuitive and simpler way, where they've got better visibility into the IT solution, into the UC solution. So as an example on that, in terms of what that might look like, it's simpler workflows, it's better role-based access to manage visibility and access, and it's local administration close to the front line. Some of the topics we talk with organisations around. The nice thing is you don't have to completely reskill to go on this journey. We build this into the organisation with their existing team. And the other nice thing is it starts to free up resources in that team to focus on more strategic priorities, such as AI use cases.
I wonder if we can please stick with AI. You mentioned earlier about Microsoft Copilot and how businesses are sort of dabbling with it. But I think it's quite clear after the hype around AI sort of died down a little bit after a few years that they can only really deliver real value in a well-optimized UC environment. How does getting UC service management right today set the stage for businesses to embrace AI successfully tomorrow?
That's a great question, Kieran. And there's certainly a lot of excitement, isn't there, around AI in the industry. A lot of organisations, are actively exploring that. They're starting to use deploy AI use cases, as we call it now. But in terms of building the foundation for that, it is difficult to progress that if all you're doing really is firefighting. You've got a relatively unstable UC service, and you're heavily reliant on a service provider or a partner for any real service information or change around that UC service. We just find that a difficult position to be in. What's not helping here, of course, is that the cloud UC platforms, if you look at Microsoft Teams or Cisco WebEx, for example, they are becoming increasingly sophisticated and more complex and take more managing, in quotes. So this really it really drives the fact that you end up with no time and no insight really to create this baseline to put your AI use cases on top, and that's really where we talk about taking back control. But what we see is, and what we've talked about is building a foundation as a precursor for delivering AI use cases. What we're trying to do is create time, and importantly, we're also trying to access information so we get some insight into the effectiveness of those AI use cases and the return on investment, which I think is critical for organisations as they start to deploy them. That's the plan around here. I mean, I could maybe just finish on a few examples where we are investing to help with organisation, might put a bit of colour around this. It tends to be in topics like intelligent management. You look at a lot of platforms today, you're presented with relatively fixed forms, fixed dashboards around information you're looking at. We see that increasingly moving across to more of a natural language interface where you can ask about a particular problem or a scenario or a trending or planning, for example, and have the platform automatically create the relevant information and visualization and that for you for your particular question or topic. One quite interesting area we're looking at. The other one is around, we obviously collect a lot of data from around the UC service. In some cases it's quite overwhelming, particularly in large organizations. So we're using AI and building AI use cases into that, really to look for anomalies in day-to-day activity and usage. And that's possibly related to potential security issues around that UC service, might be related to performance issues where things are trending out of where they would normally be. And it puts you more on a proactive and front foot to deal with those. So I know a lot of that's not here right now, here and now, but you will see this coming over the near term in our view.
Terrific. And one final question before I let you go, Tim, and this is married to the earlier question, but can you share an example of a customer that's transformed their UC environment with this kind of approach that you guys are outlining? What tangible benefits did they achieve?
Good question to finish with, Kieran, and it'll hopefully illustrate what we've been talking about a little. So I can do. If I maybe talk a little around a recent project we've been working on, and this was with a large multinational company in the manufacturing sector. So their position was for their UC and telephony service. They were running that on a fairly large global Cisco telephony platform. But they got a desire to move that to Microsoft Teams as they transformed their UC and IT service, started to move that to the cloud. So that was their intent. Now, the existing service, it was all outsourced as a managed service to a partner, and that contract was coming up for renewal. And they'd come to the same conclusion that we're talking about on the call here today. They wanted better insight and better control around that UC service to really put them in a better position to start that migration off. So that's where we came into this. And what we provided was an automation and analytics platform that was integrated into their existing UC service. It was just simpler and more intuitive. And it allowed them to take on the day-to-day management of their service and also provided them with better insight and analytics into that environment. So the analytics, they've got a much clearer view on the inventory and user services and usage around those on that service. They got much more clarity on what features were being used, what personas were being adopted by users, and all this fed directly into their migration plan to put them in a much better foundation to start that journey on. In terms of tangible benefits, maybe start with an intangible one, perhaps to start. So one is they obviously had control over their own destiny. They weren't reliant on asking third parties continually for information or change around their use service. So they had much more control on what they were doing. And with that, they got much more confidence to plan. the actual transformation and migration itself at their own particular place and how they wanted to go about it. I think there are probably a couple of intangible ones. In terms of tangible benefits, part of the work they were doing was an audit on their existing service based on what was in use. And what we find on a lot of these telephony platforms is the configuration tends to creep over many years. Organizations are good at onboarding, but slightly less good at offboarding. So the configuration tends to creep. They ran an audit across the inventory, found a lot of surplus information or information that didn't need to be migrated up to the Teams platform. And by leaving that behind, they realized quite significant cost savings on their UC service, which again, they could put to work on strategic priorities and start to look at AI use cases. It was of the order of 20 to 25% operating cost savings they realized out of that audit and that migration. So that was this particular organization. Maybe just to finish, I think their feedback to us was it put them in a much closer understanding of the actual service that they were delivering, and its alignment with user requirements, but also a much better foundation for what they were planning and looking to do going forward. So yeah, I hope that example helps just illustrate the topic we're talking about a little, Kieran.
No, absolutely it does. And I think it's really helpful, just as you say, it's not just about visibility of what you have in the moment and all you can do in the near term. It's also about just the freedom and the wriggle room it gives you to really have long-term planning as well. Unfortunately, that's all we've got time for today, but it's been a terrific session, as ever, with you, Tim. So thank you for being here.
Okay, thank you, Kieran. And yes, I really enjoyed the conversation today.
And if you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share on social media, and we'll see you next time. I've been Kieran Devlin of Use Today. Thanks for watching.